Hey, welcome to Next Lane Recordings. I'm Braeden, and this is my studio in Atlanta, Georgia that I built in 2021. So I was born and raised in Atlanta. I've been playing guitar since I was 10, and I started my first band when I was in middle school. Got the bug really quickly for recording, and it evolved into what it is today. I'd been recording my band since I was about 14, and I've played in many bands since then, and I've always been the guy that records. I had little studios here and there throughout the years, including my parents' basement, my college dorm, which was you could barely call a studio. And when I graduated from MTSU, I moved in with a buddy of mine, and I had a nice little area in the basement there. In 2021, I bought my house with the idea of turning the basement into a real studio. That was my dream since I was a kid, and that's what I decided to do. So here we are today. So now I want to go ahead and give you a little rundown about the gear that I use, how I use it, and show you a little bit about my workflow. All right, so I'll give you a quick tour of the studio. This is the control room with a bunch of acoustic treatment in here. I've got bass straps in the corners, and then first reflection points are covered as well. This is an Argosy desk. Everything I have in here is basically in this desk. We'll start on this side. So this is the Antelope Audio Orion Studio. That's my interface. Above that, I've just got a brush panel so I can have access to the I/O on the front of the Antelope. Then I've got an Audient ASP800 for an extra set of preamps that's connected through ADAT. I've got a Behringer headphone distribution system there. And then we've got this Cranbourne ADAT rack with some preamps and that Empirical Labs pump compressor. So this is the Antelope SRC. This is a controller for the Orion. Super helpful to have. I know it's like sitting right next to it, but just being able to quickly go from keyboard to there is so much quicker than going keyboard to all the way over there. Seems silly, but it's super necessary for me. This side, I've got the XFX3, which I use for a ton of guitar tones. And then above that, I've got two sets of patch bays, which are connecting all of the I/O in the studio. So in the live room, I've got a mic panel, which I'll show you in a minute. And then I also have another mic panel back there, if you can see it. A couple guitar amps in here, and then I've got some cool knickknacks sitting on this little bench. And then I've got this monitor feeding a camera in the live room so I can see the talent while they're in there. All right, let's head on over to the live room. So here is the live room. You can see I've actually built a second wall to help isolate the live room from the control room even more, which it worked out super well. In here, I've got a little guitar wall. Got a poster for Next Lane. I've got these diffusion panels on the walls, which just help make the room feel a little bigger. I've got a couple big rugs here, which are helpful for reflections and drum kits not moving around. I got another one of my amps, which is the 5153 Stealth, the 6L6 model, and then a diesel 212 cab and a vertical Mesa 212 cab. So here's my mic panel, which connects, all of these points connect to the patch bay. So that way it's just super easy for me to tap my microphones in to the Antelope. All right, so now we're gonna hop into the computer and I'm gonna show you the Orion Studio software and just give you a brief overview of how I use it. So to start things off here, the top row shows your preamps that are built in to the Orion. You've got 4 on the front and 8 on the back. The 4 front ones, you can choose between mic, line, direct, and high Z input types. And the back 8, it's only mic, line, direct. So if you're gonna do a guitar or DI or something like that, you wanna use the front. This ADAT tab's got some trims for ADAT equipment, SPDIF, same trims for the SPDIF equipment. Below that, you've got a few tabs here, which we'll get into. And below that, we've got the routing section, which is where I spend 90% of the time. And it looks overwhelming, it kind of is at first. Once you wrap your head around it though, it is so versatile. So the way to kind of think about this is this top section is the inputs, the stuff that's coming into the Orion. And then the output is the stuff that's going out of the Orion. Kind of, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's a good way to think about it. So I'm just gonna start by saying kind of what these rows are, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to use them. So preamp, that's your like I said, the built-in physical preamps on the Orion. The MU mic is the same thing, but on 5 through 12, you can turn on emulation mics if you have the Antelope mics. Comp play, this is really DAW out. So it's coming for me out of Pro Tools into the Orion. You got 32 channels that you can route that with, and I'll get more into that. ADAT in, that's what's coming from my ADAT equipment. SPDIF in, for me, that's coming from my Axe Effects. AFX out, this is the DSP that's built into the Antelope. They have plugins built in that you can use. Mix 1 and 2, so you'll see that they have these mixers built in to the Orion, which you can use to mix. The output of those mixers are what these correlate to. Then output, you have your line out. That is the physical analog line outs on the back of the Orion. Headphones 1 and 2, that's the headphone jacks on the front panel. There's 2 of them. Monitor A and B. So monitor A is my mix cubes, my reference monitors, and then monitor B is my main Atom monitors. And the reason I have my mains on monitor B is the manual mentions that monitor B is the highest dynamic range, so I figure that's a little bit better, more efficient for mixing. Comp record, this is your DAW in. This is what's feeding the inputs in your DAW. So when you go to create a new track, you set what input it is. This is where you're picking that number. ADAT out, this is what's gonna feed your ADAT equipment. SPDIF out, this is what's gonna feed your SPDIF equipment, which in my case is the Axe Effects. So if I wanna reamp something, I would set the DI channel in Pro Tools out, the SPDIF out. So AFX in, this is what's going to feed the AFX plugins if you choose to use them. Mix channel 1, this is where you assign all of your channels on your mixer. And same thing with mix channel 2. So we'll get into a little more about how I use it and how you can use it in another video. So after the routing page, like I said, we have the mixers. There's your AFX tab where you can assign plugins, do what you want to with it. So the session tab is where you can create presets for your control panel setup and layout. And I didn't use it for a while, but I've started using it more lately, and I find it really efficient and really speeds up my workflow, especially when I'm using a big session like tracking drums or something. So there's just a brief overview of the control panel. I'll get into more of how I use it in a little more in detail in another video. Well, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you in the next one.